Many people are uncomfortable with the assumption of perfect competition in standard economics models, especially in an international trade, although that skepticism uh, arises in many different contexts. We've looked at monopoly, where there is a single seller, as opposed to perfect competition, where there are many sellers, all of which are price takers. But there's a sort of intermediate version, which is very helpful in understanding a lot of international trade issues. And we call this monopolistic competition. Now, this is neither perfect competition nor pure monopoly. Instead, it's somewhere in between. Firms have some pricing power. They're able to adjust their quantity and affect the price of the goods that they sell. But they're going to be competitors making similar products, which will tend to drive economic profits to zero in the long run. So a critical part of the monopolistic competition story is differentiated products. That is, one product is slightly different than a substitute. So you can think about this, say for example, with cars. A Hyundai is not the same thing as a Toyota, which is not the same thing as a Ford, which is not the same thing as a Mercedes. They have to compete with each other. They can't ignore the pricing decisions of firms that are making a specialized product when they make their own decisions. So you have to potentially take that into account. We're also going to see that there are declining average costs. That means that as firms produce more, the average cost tends to fall. Now, an easy way to get that is by assuming that there's a simple fixed cost to the firm, and we're going to make this simple and have constant marginal costs. So if you have this kind of arrangement of differentiated products and this cost structure, then you can get this monopolistic competition model. So let me depict this graphically, where we've got the quantity of production of the individual firm. It's this individual firm making this particular product. We've got price and cost on this axis, and we will have a constant marginal cost. As firms produce one more unit, they incur a new cost, but we're keeping it constant just to make things simple. But the presence of a fixed cost means that as you produce more and more, you're going to have that fixed cost shared over an increasing quantity of production. The bottom line with this is that the average total cost tends to be falling. Now, this is very different than an upward sloping supply curve in the perfect competition story, because it means is that you produce more, your costs go down. Now what we'd like to do is to add in a demand curve drawn by this green line. So this is the demand for this particular product. It's the demand for Mercedes. It's the demand for a particular kind of blue jeans that has to compete with another firm making similar blue jeans. Not exactly the same, but similar. So we've got the demand curve for the individual product, and we've got a marginal revenue curve associated with that. And as always, how we determine the pricing decision of the firm is where marginal cost equal to marginal revenue. Firms, in this example, will produce a quantity of Q1, and we go up to the demand curve. That's the price. And one of the things that you immediately see about this is that price exceeds marginal cost in this particular example. But more importantly, we have that in this case that the average total cost is below the price charged by the firm. If the price exceeds the average total cost, then we've got profits, economic profits associated with this amount of production and this price. There are these nice profits associated with making this. So this, if you will, is the short run equilibrium where the firm is able to charge that price and have profits. Now here's the competition part. This is really kind of a monopoly story here. When you have these profits and other firms see the possibility of making money, another firm will come in and start to produce this good, or a good similar to this as well. So the profits bring in new firms, and that will change the demand curve facing this firm. The demand curve becomes more elastic for this firm. They are going to have less pricing power than if they didn't have these new competitors. So the demand curve is going to become flatter with the introduction of the new competition. There'll be a new marginal revenue curve. There will be an associated costs for this new level of production. So let's draw this in as well. So let's take a look at the long run equilibrium. Okay, so I'm going to have I'm doing this to some extent kind of arbitrarily, but I'll explain this in just a second. So this is the new demand curve with the new competitors. And we've got a new quantity of production and a new marginal revenue curve that goes through that point. Now I've drawn this in a particular way because I know where things need to end up. In particular, I want the final equilibrium to be such where marginal revenue equal to marginal cost, or the firm's decision about quantity, is such that the price equals to average total cost. So you might have to draw this a few times on your own to get this exactly right. But the important thing is that the demand curve becomes more elastic, and that the final story is such that price equal to average total cost, zero economic profits. Now, a couple things to note about this. One is that the presence of this short run equilibrium with economic profits draws in other firms into the market with competing products. So the long run is one where you have no economic profits. All the capital owners are earning their fair market return, and that would be at a point like this. So what you see is when you have these the competition, it's going to tend to drive the price down, but importantly from a welfare standpoint, it also is driving down the average cost. So firms lose their ability to extract extra normal profits. Consumers get the benefit from the new competition. Costs go down, which means that the overall cost to the economy are improved as there's more competition, lower prices, lower costs. So that's the basic story of monopolistic competition. In a subsequent video, we'll take a look at how this same structure can be analyzed with international trade.